Good morning, everybody. So let's take a look at this final assignment or summative, if you will, for Unit 1. We will be looking at the power flower. We're going to break this down. So if you have read ahead and looked at the assignment, slow your brain down, okay? Because this is a lot to take in, especially since we're kind of bringing in everything we've covered in Unit 1. So please, please, please follow along with this video. So in this activity, what you will be doing is you'll be taking part of the power flower that will really help you to have a stronger awareness of the structures found in our society. So this meaning in your area, in your community, in your group. What you will need to consider is how, as an individual and as a group, your alignment or misalignment affects your ability to affect change and be heard in your community. So how if you find that you do align with many of the things that are seen in your society and in your community, how does that affect your ability to be heard? Or if you're completely on the opposite side, maybe how does that affect that? So you'll be reflecting a lot on your results from your power flower in the form of a blog again that will be referenced toward the end of the course for our culminating, okay? So lots to do. So through the blog for the power flower, you're going to be expressing your understanding of culture from the Unit 1 material we've gone over. So cultural elements and functions, your own identity. How is this socially constructed? So through all the different implementations we've learned about and all the different viewpoints we've learned about, how is your cultural identity constructed? And finally, you will gauge your level of awareness of the issues regarding equity and culture by assessing your place along stages of changes continuum. So looking at how where you sit in that continuum area. So some learning goals and success criteria. Please read these over as they tell you by the end of the activity what you will be able to do, and you will know you have met those goals when you can successfully do those two things. So Kofi Annan, a former Secretary General of the United Nations, had this really great quote. People of different religions and cultures live side by side in almost every part of the world, and most of us have overlapping identities which unite us with very different groups. We can love what we are without hating what and who we are not. We can thrive in our own traditions, even as we learn from others and come to respect their teachings. So something to think about is that culture can be defined in many ways, but not always from the same perspective. There are different frames of references that can affect how we view culture or cultures, our understanding of what it is, the level of importance we place on it within our lives. And we need to be reminded daily that we are not part of a particular dominant culture, that this may affect how outsiders see us and even how we see ourselves. So if we're not part of that culture, we may skew our view of what actually happens within the culture. So for some cultures, this means they have been abused or misrepresented in the mainstream media. Some real good questions to reflect on your own by yourself is, or maybe with a close friend or family member, is how might this affect the way we are treated and understood by those outside of our culture? And how do we change their skewed assumptions? So these photos you are seeing here off to the side come from a campaign called We're a Culture, Not a Costume, that was done in 2011 by Ohio University students teaching about racism in our society. So if you describe yourself as having a hyphenated identity, so this could be something like Mexican Canadian, sometimes you hear it as Irish American, really stop and think about an ethnocultural one due to immigration or descent. Which would define you? Which of the two? Would it be the ancestral origin or the one you were raised in or the one you self-identify with? How would you choose if you have a multiple identity approach? How would you choose which one you identify with? Would you just say this is who I am? Really having to understand that when you have a hyphenated identity, there is sometimes some very clashing societal opinions of what you should be like, what you should look like, and also it really can make it really hard for those with hyphenated identities to find a quote community to fit into. So all these questions about culture can lead us into an examination to have one develops awareness of our own cultural identity. So this is where the power flower comes into play, and some of you may have done this before. So what is the power flower? It was developed by Canadian social change educators to identify who we are and who we are not as individuals in a group in relation to those who wield the power in our society. So the center of the flower is divided into 16 segments representing our one facet or category of our social identity. So something like age group, gender, for even. The outer part of the flower describes dominant or powerful identities in our society. So if we were looking at gender, for example, we may write male or males on the outermost part of the flower because in our society, males are often granted greater powerful power, have greater powerful influences. That was a mouthful. So the real objective of the power flower, say that 10 times fast, is to discover how close or how distant we are to the dominant identity of the society you are currently living in. The more the inner petals match the outer ones, the more social power you may possess. So what you are going to do is using the link here or here, you're going to find a version of the power flower. It should look similar to this image. You're going to fill in the outmost petals with the most widely accepted social dominant or powerful identities that represent each other, and fill in the individual petals individually. And you really need to hold on to this because you need this for the final assignment, okay, for that blog. So because the power flower can be very eye-opening and emotionally draining for some when they realize how connected or disconnected they may be, I do want you to take some time to work on this. So this is where we're going to stop for today.